Hello out there and welcome. My name is Sharon. I am the Chief Operating Officer for the Discover Your Path U platform, where we believe that every life can teach and everyone can grow. To that end, I'm also the host of this show, The Connection Sessions, where we bring together practitioners, marketers, artists, entrepreneurs, spiritualists, mentors, and students in an effort to connect to community, learn from each other, and grow. Today, I have somebody with me that I really enjoy and have enjoyed her since I first got to know her. Heather Clarke, who is an EFT NLP practitioner and life coach. Her company is The Inner Journey, and one of her most important messages is about why knowing and owning our own inner journey and that process of getting to know ourselves and our why is so incredibly important. So Heather, thank you so much for being here with me today. Would you mind just sharing with us how it is that you got to life coaching and what helped you find your why?
It's lovely to be here, Sharon, and it's lovely to talk to you again as well. Yes, my journey, I think, is my inner journey website and Facebook page and business has grown from the fact that I'm very aware that I'm not the same person now as I was in the past, and that does not by any means shower aspersions on what I was like in the past. It doesn't mean that I look back with a whole heap of regrets and think, oh, I wish I hadn't been like that. It just means that I am now a different person, and I've grown and come to a different understanding of the way the world works, the way I work, and how those two things interact with each other. I guess my first steps towards finding my own inner self, if you like, came from very dark and difficult times in my life when I lost my mum, which is now about 16 years ago. And it was through that experience and that realization that my map of the world didn't fit anymore that I had to start understanding that there was somewhere that I needed to go, and that the person that I was then was not equipped to deal with life. My map of the world didn't fit anymore, and I had to sort out a new one. I suffered very badly with depression. I would stick my happy face on to go to work in the morning, and off I would go in my car, sobbing all the way. And then I'd get there and just hope that for those few hours at work, I was a teacher of young children, a few hours, they would distract me enough from what was going on in my head. And all the time that this happy face was going on, I was planning my exit from life. It wasn't an easy thing to do, but at the time everything was very numb, everything was very grey, and nothing made sense. And I was able to rationalise the fact that everybody would be better off without me. Nobody would really miss me. I hadn't had an impact on anybody's life really in any way, and it was time to go. The only people that I couldn't rationalise that for were my children. And so one day, driving back from work with my usual puddle of tears around my feet in the car, I had an epiphany, and I realised that actually I had a choice, but I had an extra choice that I hadn't realised. I could stay and just be miserable. I could go, or my third choice was I could stay and I could change the way that I thought about things. I could change my thought patterns. I could stop constantly rerunning everything that was wrong with my life in my head. And I could actually grasp hold of my thoughts and point them in a different direction. And that was that was my epiphany, the fact that I have control over my inner life. I'm not just subject to the whims of circumstances and the bad things that come along or the good things that come along. Actually, I am separate to that. And that was an absolute revelation. That was the start of my journey.
That is incredibly powerful. And I love how you lead with the fact that you are not the same person today isn't accompanied by a great deal of regret and remorse for what you used to be, because so many of us go on this journey of change specifically to get away from something that we are unhappy about. And then
Mm.
we maintain and cuddle and coochie coo that thing that we're unhappy about, even after we've changed. That's so powerful that your change has come without that lingering regret. How do you think it is that unfolded for you?
I think it was because I realized there was a separation, like I say, between who I am within and the circumstances of my life. And that I'd responded to all of the different circumstances according to my perception of the world at the time. We can only work from where we are, basically. So my map of the world and how it worked had been based on previous experiences, like I say, and nothing had prepared me for when my mum died and the following situation that surrounded that. But I began to realise that actually who I was inside was not dictated by that. Who I was inside, my inner being, if you like, was on a journey that was outside of all of that noise. And
Yes.
that realization was what enabled me to leave my past ideas and belief system behind without regretting it, because it had served me up to that point. You know, I just had to take the next step and go in a different direction.
I love that. I love how you keep on using the metaphor of the map. Right? As you and I both know from NLP, the map is not the territory. In other words, a map is intended to give you the ability to plan within moving around the territory, but it actually doesn't represent the territory. And just the story that you're sharing right now is such a beautiful example of understanding that what happens outside of me is not, my internal world is not a result of my external world. It's vice versa. My external world is actually a shade of my internal world. How have you, through your company, and I, by the way, if I didn't tell you before, I absolutely love the company name, The Inner Journey. How did you become that alchemist, that one that changes internally so that the external will change?
I think once the realization had hit me that I had a choice about what I could think, that was when things began to change, because up until that point, I had been a victim in my head. I was the victim of circumstances. I was the way I was because of all the things that had happened in my past. And to a certain extent, there's an element of truth in that, because our experiences build our map, if you like, as I was saying, and we use that to then interpret our situation. But realizing that thought was outside of that was a huge revelation, because I then began to think, well, actually, if thought is thought effectively then became how I create my reality, I could choose how to think. So I could choose to get up in the morning and stagger out of bed and think, oh, this hurts and that hurts and I didn't sleep well and oh, today's going to be really difficult. And then my day would be really difficult and all I would be able to think about would be which bits of me hurt. But actually, if I get out of bed in the morning and I think about the things that I'm grateful for, so I focus my thoughts in a particular direction, my entire day is different. And that's purely because I have taken control of my thoughts and created a reality that is way better than I was expecting. And that made a big difference, because that realization came as a sort of just as I was changing another aspect of my life. It's never the little things, is it? It's always the big things that force us to reevaluate life. And I'd come to a point with my teaching career where I just thought, I love these kids, but I'm not teaching them what they need to know. I'm not teaching them how to be. I'm just teaching them how to stuff their head full of things that in 20 years they may never have used. You know, how many of us use vectors on a day-to-day basis? So it's something in maths that I never really understood and I've never used since I was at school. So it just became, I just felt as though I was fighting against who I was. My inner journey was taking me in a different direction. I didn't know where, but I knew it was taking me in a different direction. And I tried to ignore it. I tried not to listen. I tried to think, well, after the holidays, it'll all be fine. I can just go back into work and I'll be full of energy. But the minute I stepped back into work, all the energy just drained away.
Yes.
And I thought, no, it's time to stop. So about a year and a half ago now, I gave up teaching. Wow. And I went into a complete slump, because as soon as somebody says to you, oh, what do you do? That's like, oh, that gives me an identity now. This is something I can hang myself on, not literally, but, you know, and to suddenly be in the situation of, if somebody asked me, what do you do? To just stand and go, well, I used to be. That was really difficult. I completely lost track of who I was at that point, and I realized that I'd sort of got to get back into that journey towards who I am. And so my husband, who has quite a lot of insight, kept on saying to me, why don't you do some courses? Why don't you do some courses? Go on Udemy and look and see if you can do a course. So I sat there like a grumpy child one day with my laptop, and I literally huffed, and I went, what shall I write in it then, in the search bar? And he just said, well, what are you interested in? And so I typed in well-being, and suddenly it was like being a child in a sweet shop, because there was so much information that was going to help. So that was where it started then. I did a life coaching course, I did an NLP course, CBT, hypnotherapy, EFT, TFT. It was just like being in a sweet shop. And I suddenly began to find that my rather strange view of the world, where I could control my thoughts, was actually not strange at all. It all suddenly began to just drop into place like a jigsaw. And that was really exciting, because it was really good to know from outside sources that I was not strange. I was, in actual fact.
I remember that feeling too, of finding that community of people where you're like, oh, because when you have views like this, that there's a possibility that you're not a victim, because it seems like the majority of at least Western society is addicted to victimhood. And when you arrive at that idea that actually I'm not only not a victim, but actually the creator of my entire experience, there are people around you who do not want to hear that, and they will begin to shun you in all sorts of creative different ways.
Yeah.
So when I began studying life coaching and NLP, because I also absolutely love NLP, that was such a blessing. And I just wanted to share with you, our Chief Spiritual Officer, Andrea Hendren, is here, and she says, you found your power. And Justin Reesty, who is one of our instructors on the Discover Your PathU platform, said, we get what we focus on.
Absolutely.
And those are so true, are they not?
Absolutely, yes. I suddenly found, I've always been, right from childhood, a collector of interesting quotes.
Yes.
I have notebooks and bits of paper scattered all over the place with quotes that have resonated with me at a particular point in my life. And as I was doing these courses and thinking about setting up my own business, I began to realize that these are great, because these are other people's ideas that are similar to mine, but we only ever really pick the quotes that we agree with, don't we? We never pick up one that we don't like.
That is so true.
Thought, actually, maybe it's time now that I start using my voice rather than relying on other people to tell me what I'm thinking, if that makes sense. So so that's been another step forward, is actually on my Facebook page and on my Instagram, is using my voice. So I try my absolute hardest to not rely on other people's quotes, but to put out there what I feel is my reality.
And you're being a little bit modest here, because it's not just your Facebook page and social media empire. If I'm not mistaken, you're also beginning to write a series of books, correct?
Yes, I am. Yes. This
Why don't you tell us about those?
My new goal. Well, one of the things that I've found frustrating about starting a business is the process of starting a business, because you launch into it full of enthusiasm, thinking you can solve the world's problems, and very quickly realize that actually that isn't what you're here for. You're not going to be the hero in everybody's story.
Yes.
You are just going to be somebody that hopefully through their own experience can help other people. And what I've learned from lots of other friends, yourself included, is that our power lies in our own story,
Yes.
our own journey. And so the books that I'm writing are about how I use what I've learned every day. So hopefully there'll be a series. I'm only on book 1 at the moment, but hopefully there'll be a series.
I see a series.
Their titles will begin with the words every day. So every day NLP, every day CBT. And it will be things from my journey that I think may help other people. I'm not trying to teach people NLP so that they can go out and be NLP practitioners necessarily, but what I am hoping to do is share elements of NLP that people may find useful in their lives. Because quite often, I don't know what it's like with yourselves in the US, but here, if you go to the doctor because you have some sort of an emotional issue, it takes weeks and weeks to get the help that's needed. And sometimes that help's too late. So I'm thinking, well, maybe if I can get some books out there, perhaps people can have a look at NLP before they go. Perhaps they can read something that might just help.
I love that. I love the idea of, because so many life coaches, like you're saying, we're like a kid in a candy shop, and we just begin voraciously tearing through all of these modalities, and yet we are simultaneously the empathic group of people that are coaches and compassionate care professionals, the last people to take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
I love that you're putting out something that takes what you voraciously consumed like a kid in a candy store, but in such a way so as to help someone actually become, in a way, their own inner guru. That's
Absolutely.
a powerful thing, Heather. Powerful.
Absolutely. Because I absolutely sincerely believe that within everybody is the same as is within me. We are all, I can't remember which book I read it in. I think it might have been Carl Rogers, where he talks about droplets of the divine. And I just think there are so many people out there who struggle so much because they don't see the beauty that is within them. They don't see that that's there. And if they had an opportunity to perhaps look at the world in a slightly different way, some of the clouds might clear, and they might begin to just get a little view of what their potential is and what they could really be.
Indeed. That is, after all, what a bodhisattva is in Buddhism. It's somebody who has fully recognized their own inner potential and have decided to make that round trip journey back into form to live the life that is a game, knowing that it's a game. And the beauty that arises from the willingness to do that. Because if you have the choice between enlightenment and coming back to form and trying to play this game while keeping center stage that it is a game, a lot of us are going to choose enlightenment because this can wear you down, being a human being and dealing with emotions and your relationships and decisions. So I just love that you're literally creating an on your desk life coach.
Yes, but I suppose that is sort of what it is. It's that's a good description of it. Actually, it's some way that I can perhaps be there and help people without being there, if that makes sense. And I'm enjoying writing it. Sometimes you just get into flow and it all comes out, and I look at the clock and 3 hours have gone. What happened? And sometimes it's like pulling teeth. And I just have to walk away and leave it and be calm and then come back to it again.
I am very familiar with that.
Yes, because have you finished your book now? Or is it something?
Almost. I'm actually finishing up the outline right now. I've hired a writing guru or coach because I find that, like you, I struggled with the idea that I don't have anything to say. And then come to find out that almost every single person who puts out what they need to say out into the world, be it like this in an interview or as a motivational speaker in a podcast or a book, we are all struggling with those same fears. All of our experiences externally may be unique, but the one thing that unites us all is that I have felt what you felt. I've felt desperation. I've felt sadness. I've felt the lure of tragedy to just quit this life altogether. I've felt joy. I've felt inspiration. I felt encouragement. That is what unites us, not what we do or where we've been, but rather that internal state of feeling. And I just love that we all get to come together and join on what it is that unites us rather than fighting about what it is that divides us.
Yes. Yeah, that's what gives me hope. The things that link us all together are ultimately stronger than the things that keep us apart. And I love the image of the ocean, if you like.
Yes.
Just thinking of droplets of the divine. The ocean is one that comes to mind a lot because I have quite a few friends now in the US through Facebook, and there's one or two people that I talk to quite a bit at a distance in order to try and help them to deal with what they're dealing with. And one of the loveliest pictures is the fact that we are part of the same ocean. The fact that my waves are rippling on the UK shore and your waves are rippling on the shore of the US doesn't mean that we aren't connected by a depth that is way beyond what we can actually see. I mean, even on a physical basis, thinking about the ocean and how deep it is and how big it is, I can't get my head around it. So to think of that on a spiritual level, in the sense that we are all one, we are all connected, we are all beings that will go back to that place that we've come from and suddenly go, oh, yeah.
That was fun.
Exactly. Have I really got to go back and do that again? That depth and that power that we all have, that people lose sight of. And that's what I'd really like to help them to find, that bit that links them to everybody else, that stops them feeling so alone, because that voice in our head that never shuts off, it's a bit like me because I go on for hours. It just never stops, and it's so very rarely positive, you know. How often does your internal voice start with a yippee, you know, oh, this is going to be great? It's
girl, next to never.
Yeah, it likes to try and keep us safe in a little bubble. It likes to try and make sure that we're just a puddle somewhere by ourselves. And it's like, no, actually, not a puddle, part of an ocean.
It does indeed, and in fact, that is its purpose. The purpose of the mind is to give the illusion of separateness so that we can, through the course of this life, find our way back to unity. That's the whole point. That's the game. That's the beauty of it all.
Yeah, I remember reading in a book somewhere that the reason we choose this place to come is because its lessons are hard, but it's the value of its lessons that is the greatest.
And again, like NLP teaches, however hard we experience it as is up to us. It's up to us, and it's up to our thought processes.
Yeah.
Well, Heather, I cannot believe that a half hour has already gone by, but indeed it has. Thank you.
Because I talk so much.
Oh no, I absolutely loved it. Loved the subject, so it was so much fun to talk. I really appreciate you being here with me today. I appreciate the fact that you were willing to step over the idea that you don't have anything to say, because my God, you most certainly have a wealth and a plethora of wonderful, encouraging things to say. So thank you for braving that fear and joining me today. I want to thank all of our viewers, to Becky Stokes, Sieta, Justin, to Andrea. Thank you so much for being with us here today and for spending time with us. If you do find this video after we're no longer live, go ahead and drop us a hashtag replay. Let us know that you were around. If you'd like to connect with Heather, either for conversation or maybe you're on the verge of starting your own inner journey, all of her contact information is in this live, including her Instagram account, Twitter account, Facebook page. So if you would like to connect with her, please do so. That is the point of this show, that we connect to community, learn from each other, and grow. So again, Heather, thank you so much for being here with me today and for sharing yourself. To all of our viewers, thank you for watching. And as always, guys, we will be here tomorrow, same place, same time. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye.